They always talk about sacrifice when they want to take something from you. Everyone's expected to adjust, Vanessa said flatly, tapping her polished nails on her tablet. Your current compensation model is no longer aligned with our strategic goals. I'm Jack Redhawk, 54 years old, with more gray than black in my hair and about 2 decades worth of stress lines to show for it. For 15 years, I was Senior Vice President of Sales at Red Timber Supply Company, a commercial woodworking firm based out of Austin, Texas. The job title was nice, but truth is, I was the one who kept our top clients happy and the cash flow steady. I had built those accounts from nothing. They weren't just names in a CRM. They were real people, folks I knew by voice, whose kids' birthdays I had marked on my calendar. If there was a fire, they called me before they called their own people. I didn't sell lumber. I sold peace of mind. Vanessa pushed a stack of papers across the conference table. This new plan will reward growth and innovation, she said, like she'd been practicing it in the mirror. I glanced down. 40% off the base pay. A new commission system that basically meant I'd make less even if we sold more. Health plan stripped. Bonus terms gutted. She'd been with us 3 months. Came in after our company was bought out by a firm in Chicago. Showed up in sharp heels and fancier suits, tossing around buzzwords like synergy and scalability. I knew what she saw when she looked at me. Old school, expensive, and in her way. Is there a start date? I asked, voice steady. Effective today, she replied, like that was just another bullet point. I stood up, shook her hand. Appreciate the clarity, I said. She blinked, like she was expecting me to argue or beg. Instead, I turned around and walked out. An hour later, I was packing up my office. Just a few personal things. A photo of my 2 girls graduating college, a carved pin set I got from a longtime client, and one of those sales plaques they hand out at conferences. As I loaded the box, I caught Vanessa staring through her office window. Downstairs, I gave a nod to Thomas, our CFO. We'd been through the trenches together. His look said what his position wouldn't allow. This wasn't just about numbers. It was a clean out. In the parking lot, I didn't slam the door, didn't curse or drive off like a scene from a movie. I just placed the box in my back seat, took a breath, and left, taking 15 years of business relationships with me. Ones Vanessa now had no idea how to handle. Back in 2010, when I joined Red Timber, the company was barely breaking $8 million a year. Last year, we topped $73 million. 12 of that came from my own accounts. I'd grown up in the trade. My dad ran a cabinet shop in Oklahoma. I was sanding wood before I was shaving. After college, I bounced between sales jobs until I landed here. It felt right. I knew the materials. I could sit across from an architect or a purchasing director and speak both languages. Oliver Benton, the original owner, saw that right away. You're not selling boards, he used to tell me. You're selling trust. He let me build my department from scratch. I trained my team to value relationships over quick wins. And it worked. When Oliver sold the company last year to Driftwood Capital, I figured I'd weather the changes. Mergers happen. I'd seen my share. But it didn't take long to realize this one was different. The new execs came in like a wave. First, the new CEO, zero woodworking background. Then, a marketing guru who thought flashy websites sold millwork. Then Vanessa, with her graphs and her promises to align compensation with current market standards. They didn't start with cuts. They started with inconveniences. Trimmed the travel budget. Scrutinized our expense reports. My weekly sales updates went from regular meetings to when necessary. One day, Vanessa scheduled a one-on-one lunch with Gabriella, one of my newer hires. When I walked into the restaurant, they froze. Gabriella barely looked up. Vanessa smiled like nothing was out of the ordinary. I knew then what was coming. That night, after cleaning out my desk, I sat at my home office. Sales charts. Contracts. A full decade of consistent growth stared back at me. 15 years of loyalty met with the cold phrase, "Your compensation is outdated." My phone buzzed. A text from Frank Donnelly, purchasing head at Mason Ridge Builders, our biggest account. "Is it true what I'm hearing? You leaving? Call me." Frank and I went back 12 years. I'd helped him navigate 2 corporate overhauls and a rough divorce. We weren't just colleagues. We were friends. I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey and dialed. "Jack," he answered on the first ring. "What the hell's going on?" "Big changes," I said. "You're probably getting a call from Vanessa. She's the new contact for your account." "Already did." She started rambling about new pricing strategies and bringing in a vendor management system. He paused. Tell me this isn't permanent. I leaned back in my chair. Depends what you mean by permanent. But let's just say I'll be back in touch soon. We've got a solid setup, and it's worked just fine for years. I don't need anyone new telling me how to manage my suppliers, Frank said over the phone. His voice was tight, controlled, the way it gets when he's trying not to lose it. I let the silence breathe for a bit, taking a sip of coffee while I stared out at the backyard oak tree that hadn't changed in decades. Jack, he said, a little softer this time. Are you staying with Red Timber or not? Because if you're moving on, we've got to talk. Right there, it all came into focus. My worth wasn't in my job title or the reports I filed every week. It was in the trust I'd built. 15 years of showing up, solving problems, keeping things steady when everything else got loud. And that kind of trust? That kind doesn't stay behind when someone like me walks out the door. I'm weighing my options, I said carefully. Well, when you land somewhere, call me before I end up having to deal with Harvard Barbie again, he grunted. That one doesn't know Oak from MDF. I laughed under my breath, hung up, and opened my laptop. Drafted an email to Daniel Holloway at Riverstone Supply. We met at a trade show last year. He'd told me they were looking to break into commercial millwork. I didn't hit send, just saved it as a draft for now. By the next morning, 3 more clients had called. Different voices, same worry. Vanessa was already reaching out, already rewriting contracts, already acting like she'd been around long enough to make those kinds of decisions. Later that day, I drove back to the office one last time to clear out the rest of my things. While I was boxing up my files, Thomas, our CFO, stepped into my office and handed me a folded slip of paper. Your client retention stats, he said, voice low, and their average annual spend. Thought you might want them. I nodded. He was telling me, without saying it out loud, I know what you're worth, even if they don't. That afternoon, I finished my resignation letter, sent the email to Daniel, and made a call to my lawyer to go over my non-compete clause. Just as I figured, it restricted me from selling competing millwork products for 6 months, but said nothing about maintaining relationships or selling other materials. I wasn't angry. I was clear. There's a certain strength in being underestimated. Folks like Vanessa think if they label you outdated, you'll just disappear. The thing they never understand is, you don't need a title to have influence. You just need time and trust, and I had both. 2 weeks later, I took the offer from Riverstone Supply, Senior Vice President of Business Development. Full control to build something from the ground up. Daniel didn't want flash. He wanted results. We need someone who knows this world inside and out, he said. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. The following day, I called Vanessa. I'm formally resigning, I told her. Happy to stay on a couple weeks to help transition the accounts. That won't be necessary, she said, sharp as a pin. Gabriella will be managing your book from here on. I've got history with these clients. It's not a quick handoff. We've reviewed your CRM notes, she said, cutting me off. Frankly, your methods are a bit traditional. We're implementing a more data-driven sales model. There it was. She didn't want help. She wanted me gone, neat and clean. I'll return my company laptop and phone by Friday, I said. Best of luck. 3 days later, I had lunch with Frank. He hadn't returned Gabriella's calls. Vanessa had tried going around him, escalated it to his boss. My replacement emailed me a customer satisfaction survey with 48 questions, he said, shaking his head. Then she followed it up with a PowerPoint about their new client success initiative. What I need is someone who knows why our trim order is 40% heavier in Q4. She doesn't. I nodded but said nothing negative. That wasn't my style. Where you headed? He asked. Riverstone, I said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. They've been knocking on our door for years. I smiled and sipped my water. Well, he said, pushing his card across the table. Call me when you're settled. Next day, I got a letter from Red Timber's legal department, reminding me of my non-compete. It included a list of every client I'd handled. I forwarded it to my attorney. That same afternoon, Harold Lang from Northwoods Contracting called. This new lady is trying to change our payment terms. Says we've been net 45 too long. You and I had that deal in place for years. I'm no longer with Red Timber, I told him. Yeah, I figured that out quick. Where are you now? I started to explain, but he cut me off. Good. Call me Monday. Let's talk options. By week's end, I'd had similar calls from 5 more clients. I hadn't made a pitch. They came to me. On my last official day, Vanessa called. I understand you've been speaking with clients from your time at Red Timber, she said coldly. I've talked with some old friends, sure. They're proprietary relationships, she snapped. Any attempt to divert business could violate your separation agreement. I've read my agreement, I said calmly. I know where the line is. She hung up. I sent the call recording to my attorney. My contract barred me from selling the same products, not from keeping friendships. And it sure didn't stop clients from moving their business on their own. Vanessa had finally realized what she'd really lost. My first day at Riverstone started with Daniel saying, "We've tried getting in with Northwoods for 18 months. Harold doesn't trust fast," I told him. Daniel leaned in. "How'd Red Timber keep a 95% retention rate? Industry average is 72%. I grinned. They had me. Before I could say more, my assistant walked in. "Thomas is on the line. Wants to meet." We met at a quiet place downtown that evening. "I shouldn't be here," he said. "But you are." He passed me a folder. Inside was Vanessa's quarterly report. The section labeled Client Migration Strategy, Maddox Portfolio, caught my eye. Talking points, transition maps, projected timelines. But what hit me hardest? The financials. They showed my book of business was actually worth $17.3 million, almost a quarter of Red Timber's entire revenue. "They never told you, did they?" Thomas said. "Oliver knew. But the new folks? They saw your relationships as obstacles." "She's raising prices, isn't she?" I asked. Thomas nodded. "Next month. Board approved." That was her plan all along. Get rid of me, then jack up prices and restructure deals, counting on my clients sticking around. "There's more," he added. "They've started auditing your expenses. Going back 3 years. Looking for dirt. They won't find it." "I know," Thomas said. "But they'll blame you when the numbers tank. And they're already slipping." He paused before standing. "I'm updating my resume," he said quietly. "Just thought you should know." Driving home, I didn't feel angry. I felt seen. Vanessa didn't just want me out of the way. She wanted me erased. Too late for that now. The truth was, my worth had always been staring Triestone right in the face, laid out plain in their own spreadsheets. But when it came time to talk compensation or value, I was nowhere to be found. They'd built a plan that leaned on the loyalty I had earned and then tried to harvest that same loyalty without me. It was not just that Vanessa misjudged me. It was that the company had quietly shortchanged me for years. 2 months into my new position at Redstone Mill Supply, things were humming. I had a view of downtown Austin from my office, and I was already leading a small but sharp team of 2 junior sales reps I personally hired. I had not reached out to a single former client, not one. I never needed to. They found me. Harold from Northwind Construction was the first. He called the morning after Triestone's new pricing kicked in. 14% bump. No notice. Just a memo, he growled. "You think Redstone can match our old deal?" I told him we could. Not only match it, we would throw in services Triestone never offered. That call opened the floodgates. Within weeks, Westerland Developments, Summit Ridge Builders, and Capital Build Texas all made the move to Redstone. They shared the same frustrations, rushed changes, a lack of care, and pricing decisions made by people who had never set foot on a job site. I made sure every account transition went smooth as polished oak. We delivered flawlessly. I drove to job sites myself to shake hands and check orders. My new team worked late weekends without complaint. Word got out. Following Jack Wolf to Redstone meant better service, fewer headaches, and respect. Then, Vanessa called. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tight like a cable under strain. I agreed to meet at a little cafe just 2 blocks from my office. She was already seated when I arrived, latte half-drained and irritation written across her face. "This has to stop," she snapped before I could even sit down. "What exactly are we talking about?" "Come on, Jack. You know, you are bleeding our top accounts. Have left already, and they all mentioned you." I stirred my coffee slowly. "I have not approached a single one of your clients." Her jaw flexed. "They are not just names in a Rolodex. They are Triestone assets." "No," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "They are relationships, and they go where they are respected." She leaned in, trying to reel me in. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Walk away from these clients, and we do not have to make this legal. There is no contract breach here. I am not selling competing wood products for 6 months. You should have read the terms more closely." Vanessa's face tightened. "You found a loophole." "No, I replied. I followed the contract you had your lawyers draw up. She tried to shift gears. What is it you want? A payout to walk away from these accounts? A consultant fee? She still did not get it. I am not looking for a payout. I am just doing the job you would not let me do. I stood up, tipped my coffee toward her, and left. The very next day, Frank from West Pine called me. His deal with Triastone was almost up. We are opening bids again, he said. Vanessa's been calling every day. Offered 5% below the lowest quote. That is a solid offer, I said. Maybe. But what I need is someone who answers the phone when a crane shipment is delayed on a Thursday night. 2 weeks later, West Pine signed a 2-year supply contract with Redstone. $4.2 million a year. Big win. The kind that lands in the trade press. That afternoon, I got an email from Thomas, Triastone's old finance guy. It was short. Just a company memo forwarded with the headline, Leadership Changes. Vanessa was being reassigned to strategic initiatives. They were looking for a new head of sales. I did not reply. I just forwarded West Pine's signed agreement to Daniel, my new boss, with a note. First of many. Goal, $20 million by year-end. The tide had turned, and Vanessa was finally seeing the cost of her mistake. 6 months into my time at Redstone, I stood with my team in the conference room, watching our quarterly report pop up on the big screen. $13.7 million in new business. Projections pointed to $22 million by year's end. 8 of my top 10 former Triastone clients had moved over. Daniel walked in with a grin and a bottle of champagne. Board approved your growth plan, he announced. Bigger team, bigger budget, all of it. I was about to raise a glass when my phone buzzed. It was from Thomas. Triastone Q3 earnings call in 30. Might want to listen in. I stepped into my office and dialed in. Raymond, Triastone's new CEO, sounded rattled. While we expected some transition challenges after the restructure, he began, we have experienced some unexpected client losses. An analyst cut in, sharp. Reports suggest nearly 20% of annual revenue has vanished in 6 months. Can you confirm? Raymond dodged. We are actively addressing retention. Another analyst pushed. Is it true West Pine just signed with Redstone? The pause was long enough to answer the question. We are in continued dialogue with key accounts, Raymond mumbled. As the call dragged on, an email popped up on my screen from Gabriella, the same rep Vanessa once whispered with over lunch. The subject line read, Open roles at Redstone. I walked back into the conference room and passed on the champagne. Daniel noticed. Everything all right? Just got confirmation, I said with a smile. Later that evening, an industry newsletter published an article, Triastone Falters After Leadership Exodus. It mentioned me by name, cited client losses, quoted an anonymous staff member who said, they undervalued Jack Wolf until he showed them what value really means. I never needed to brag. The numbers told the story better than I ever could. Exactly 1 year after Vanessa sat me down and told me I was outdated, I reviewed the full year-end report from my new division. $26.3 million in total revenue. Our staff had grown from 3 to 12. We moved to a bigger floor. Daniel started whispering about a possible board seat. On my desk sat a photo from our team's holiday dinner. Not forced grins. Real smiles. Folks proud of the work we were doing. Then my assistant buzzed. There is a Vanessa Claymore here. No appointment. I waited, then nodded. Send her in. She looked different, tired, less polish. Off-the-rack outfit. Thank you for seeing me, she said. She stayed standing, even after I offered her a chair. I am working with Hamilton Group now, she said. Business consulting. I was hoping to include your division in a case study about client retention. I almost laughed. I think you already know my approach. She nodded, awkward. I misjudged things at Triastone. You did. They say you took down a company without saying a word. I said nothing. She reached into her bag and placed a card on my desk. If you ever want to talk strategy. I stood, nodding politely. Appreciate the visit. I am booked solid these days. After she left, I dropped her card in the shredder without a second thought. That night, I sat on my daughter's new patio. She just bought a home and got promoted to senior architect. We grilled steaks and watched the sky turn orange. How's work going, Dad? She asked, pouring iced tea. I leaned back in my chair. Good, I said. I am building something solid. Not with lumber this time, but with principles that never go out of style. Be honest. Follow through. Take care of your people. That was the legacy I was building now. And for once, I knew it would last.